Hi there, U.S. historians. So today we're going to talk about World War One. Okay, let me move some of this out of the way here. So they didn't call it World War One back then because they did not know there was going to be sequel. They called it the Great War. Okay, definitely title your notes here. Okay, write down the date so you have an idea of when we are talking about. Now, first off, we're going to focus on the causes of the Great War. Okay, this is focusing on stuff throughout the world, primarily in Europe. Okay, now, do not write this part down yet. We'll go over each of these in more detail, but the acronym that I use is the acronym MAIN. Now, this is not something I claim to have created. This is something that U.S. teachers use throughout, across the country. Okay, so the first term is militarism, and again, we'll get into each in more detail. Second one is alliances. Third is imperialism, and fourth is nationalism. So I was trying to figure out like a visual for this, and there's not, I couldn't come up with something. So I was thinking like a lion's mane. Okay. I know it's not spelled the same, but I just like, okay, here's Mufasa and little Simba just messing up his mane. Okay. Okay. So the first one, definitely write this down. This is the M in Maine, which is militarism. So what that means is glorification of the military. Okay. So what you're going to see happening at this time is countries in Europe are building up massive standing armies and also navies as well to control and keep control over the colonies that they've taken through imperialism. And that becomes kind of a source of national pride. Okay, in the background here, you can see one of the ships. This is the Dreadnought, which is some of the most kind of advanced naval technology of this time period by Great Britain. Okay, and that's the M in Maine. Okay, so to give you a visual of what I'm talking about here, okay, you see this massive buildup of spending on the military. So the dark colors here is spending on the army. Okay, so Germany is definitely kind of increasing massively as we talk about here. They're spending on their army. Okay, then the lighter colors, your one that's spending the most here would be Great Britain, which makes sense. They're an island. The sun never sets on the British Empire, so they are using their navy to control their colonies. Okay, so what you need to know, though, is not just what is militarism or any of these letters, but how do they cause World War One? So militarism, well, I mean, these countries are spending all of this money on military. They're going to want to use it, okay, to assert their authority, to keep control of their trade, to maintain their power. Now, the second one is alliances. And odds are you're probably familiar with what an alliance is. Okay, they're signing these secret treaties. They're kind of pitting countries against one another. So with all of this then, okay, this is the A in Maine. How this causes World War One is we're going to have this small little event that happens, and we'll talk about that later, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He gets killed, but then all these countries get pulled into this affair that doesn't really impact them directly because they have to come to the support of their allies. Okay. Now, with all of this, you do have to have a rough idea of who's fighting who, right? That would be helpful. Okay. Let's see if I can do any of this here. It's been a while. Okay. So what we have, let's see if I can do pen. Okay. So here you have what's called the Central Powers. Whoa. Okay. Which is made up of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey. Like, yes, I know Bulgaria is a part of it as well. We're talking about kind of the major components here. Okay. Then over here, you have the Allied powers who are fighting against them. Main kind of key players here are France, Great Britain, and Russia. Okay, I know, again, there are other countries involved, okay, but for the sake of our components here, not as important. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, boop, and now I got to get rid of all this stuff. Okay. So, it's been a while since I've used this. Okay, clear all. Awesome. So our next kind of cause is imperialism. Okay, we've talked about this in class already. Okay, colonialism, taking of colonies, dominating, using your power when a stronger country dominates a weaker one. Okay, so this is the I in Maine here. Okay, now how does this again cause World War One? Well, what do the countries get from their colonies? Resources. Okay, a country like Great Britain is an island nation. It's not going to be able to keep continuing on with a global conflict if it can't get resources from its colonies, right? Iron, to build guns, to build ships, to build tanks, okay? Coal to fuel those ships, but also troops, right? You're going to see like West African troops fighting in support of the French, okay, because they're French colonies. You're going to see Indians fighting in support of the British because India is controlled by Britain at this time. Now, the last one here is nationalism, okay? Now, it's different than patriotism, and that matters, okay? So it's loyalty and devotion to a nation, but it's exalting it above all others, okay? So with all of that, right, patriotism would be, hey, I love my country. Nationalism would be America is better than every other country, and we're going to prove it, right? We're going to prove it through our military, of showing off our military might. Okay, we're then going to use the resources from imperialism to supply that military, and we're going to defeat other nations in war with the help of our allies. Okay, now what starts this catalyst, right? So a catalyst for like chemistry is like, hey, something that causes and starts a reaction. Okay. So what puts all these long-term causes and causes them to all of a sudden start this fighting is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Okay. So Franz Ferdinand, he is the heir apparent to the throne of Austria-Hungary. Okay. So he is going to one day be the ruler of Austria-Hungary. Okay. Now Austria-Hungary is controlled by Serbia. Or I'm sorry, other way around. Whew. Okay. Serbia is controlled. It's a colony. It's controlled by Austria-Hungary. Now, these Serbian terrorists, known as the Black Hand, they want independence. So they, during this parade, kill Franz Ferdinand. Okay. Now, because of this, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Now, that in itself is just kind of a regional conflict. But now, all of a sudden, all these other countries are going to get pulled in. Russia is going to come to the aid of Serbia. Okay? Then Germany is going to come to the aid of Austria-Hungary because they're allies. Then France and Britain are going to come to the aid of Russia. So where's the U.S. fit into this, right? So maybe you want to create a subheading here. The U.S. joins World War I. Okay? Well, the key term we need to know as far as the United States is neutrality. Okay? For the first 3 years of this war, we are neutral. Okay? We are trying not to pick sides. Okay? That becomes more challenging as this war goes along. The president, Woodrow Wilson, pictured down below here, he actually wins re-election in 1916 under the slogan, "He kept us out of the war." Okay? Americans do not want to get involved in this thing. Okay? But you start to see kind of movement towards one side. Okay? So you start seeing anti-German sentiments, anti-German feelings becoming very common in the United States. Okay? So you're going to see propaganda, right? Posters that vilify Germans, right? Making them seem like as they're evil, lurking in the shadows. Okay? In fact, they're going to go so far as to rename the hamburger, which is named after the region of Hamburg in Germany, the Liberty Sandwich, or sauerkraut put on bratwurst, right, as Liberty cabbage. Now, the other part where you start to see some movement is just through our economic policies, our trade, right? So U.S. banks, so we're clear, they're not a part of the United States government. They're regulated by it, but they're private entities, are going to loan money out to Great Britain and Germany to help fund their wars. Be like, hey, yeah, use our money. Okay, U.S. banks have lent out $2 billion with a B to Great Britain. Germany, $27 million. Now, here's the worry, right? If a country loses the war, they're not going to be able, most likely, to pay back those loans. Okay, to pay back that debt. So you think about which side would they more want to? Well, certainly any banks or anyone that's investing in banks that are loaning that money out to Great Britain are going to have much more of an interest of Great Britain winning this thing. Okay. So now a key term we need to know. Let me move my picture out of the way here. Unrestricted submarine warfare. Okay. So what Germany's doing, so they're using these U-boats, which is German, it's Unterseeboot, which is German for undersea boat. where they're attacking using their submarines to attack ships in the Atlantic. And it doesn't matter which ships, they're blockading Great Britain. Okay, so any ships that enter British waters, they're sinking. Okay, and so what's going to kind of start this off here is a ship called the Lusitania. Okay, so this is in 1915, so kind of earlier in the war. It's a British passenger ship. It's not a military ship, and there are some American passengers on board. Okay, so when this ship gets sunk, 128 Americans are also killed. Okay, and so many Americans are outraged by this. They're like, this is a terrorist attack. You are attacking innocent civilians who are also neutral, right? We're part of the United States. Okay, now, Woodrow Wilson is going to successfully negotiate and keep us out of the war. He's like, this is not enough to pull us into this deadly war. Okay, he's going to negotiate with Germany and say, you need to stop unrestricted submarine warfare for us to stay out of this thing. And Germany agrees. Okay, so they can only attack military vessels. Now, the next thing that's going to start pulling us closer to this war is the Zimmerman Note. Okay, so by 1917, most Americans are kind of siding with the British, okay, in this conflict. But early in that year, okay, the British are going to intercept this coded telegram that's seen here on the left. Okay, it's sent from the German Prime Minister, Arthur Zimmermann, to the German ambassador to Mexico. Okay, and Britain's going to crack this code and forward on to the United States. So what did it say? Okay, well, it was proposing an alliance between Germany and Mexico, and it was encouraging Mexico to invade the United States. It also stated that they were going to resume, they meaning Germany, unrestricted submarine warfare. Now, all of these things make the United States, the President Wilson, furious, right? The one thing that kept us out of the war of, restricting and stopping unrestricted submarine warfare, they're now going back on. And not only that, they're encouraging Mexico, our neighbor, to invade a neutral country. Okay? And so what you see is this resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare. Now, this happens in early February. Okay? And you start seeing some American ships get sunk. And a lot of Americans are calling for war. But note, it's not till April, right? So to back up a sec, okay? This note was passed along in January, but it's really not until April that Woodrow Wilson, after all of this resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare, is President Wilson, going to address Congress and ask for a declaration of war. Okay? And he argues that we are being unfairly attacked as a neutral party, that the German government is a dictatorship, that they must be stopped, that the German people do not have any say in the government that is forcing them into war. And so we need to make the world safe for democracy, that if people can vote in elections, they will not vote for governments that are going to send them to die. And so 6 days later, Congress is going to declare war. Okay, we're going to get into much more detail about World War I. Okay, but that's it for right now. Stay awesome, U.S. historians.